Hi everyone, it's Gina from Gina K Designs, and I'm honored to be back on the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing a spring postage card, and I'm going to be using products from our brand new release along with some oldies but goodies. I'm going to be using this new stamp set called Postcards and More. And I'm going to be using the Fancy Florals layering stencils. I'm also going to be using another brand new stencil, and this one is called the Master Layouts 15 Fillers. This one coordinates with our brand new Master Layouts 15 die set. I'm also going to be using Master Layouts 7, and I'm going to be using some Masking Magic strips. To begin my card, I'm going to do a little bit of wood graining on a piece of white cardstock using some soft stone ink. I'm just swiping this ink down the cardstock to give it some texture and make it look a little bit like wood. Then I'm going to create some boards by tilting the ink pad a little bit and then running the side of the ink pad down the cardstock to create the look of wooden planks. Then I'm going to cut this out using the Master Layouts 7 die set. I'm using the large stitched rectangle. And then for the black panel, I used the plain rectangle. Now these two rectangles work perfectly together to create that cute little shadow layer that I love to use on all of my cards. And you can see how nicely these two panels nest together. Next, I'm going to cut one of the dies from the new Master Layouts 15 die set. This is the 3 postage stamps in a row, and I'm going to cut that out of white cardstock. Then I'm going to use the new Master Layouts 15 Fillers stencil, and I'm going to stencil some blocks onto this panel that I cut out with the die set. I've just taped that down to keep it secure, but you can also use a stencil mat for this. And then I've taped down the stencil using some Masking Magic strips. Now I'm going to use a little bit of sea glass ink here, and I'm going to go right around the perimeter of the boxes just to create a little space between those boxes. This little tiny bit of color doesn't seem like it would add much, but it really does in the end. And you can use other light colors like a light gray or a light tan to do this as well. And you can see I'm staying away from the middle of the boxes because I don't want to taint the color of my stenciled florals, but I just want to create that little perimeter. And you can see how pretty that looks. It's just a little touch of color. Now I'm going to be using the Masking Magic strips to block off areas of these 3 postage stamps. Now I know I could use the stencil. However, the stencil is a little bit higher than the paper, and it's hard to get a nice tight stenciled image when you're stenciling on top of another stencil. You're pretty far away from the paper at that point. With these 1/4-inch Masking Magic strips, you can outline the perimeter of these 3 postage stamps, and then using the 1/4-inch strips, it's the perfect thickness for in between. And the nice thing about these Masking Magic strips is you can use them over again. Just store them with the stencil or store them with, the stamp set, whatever you want to use. And then just make sure you're using the same color that you used last time, and you're going to get several uses out of these same strips. So you can see I'm just covering up these little center parts here. And if you don't have a stencil mat, this really helps to just tack everything down on your scrap paper or on your mat. Now, once that's done, I'm going to start with my Fancy Florals layering stencils. I am going to block off that first block with a Post-it note. This way I don't have to worry that I'll get petals onto the next block. And I'm going to start with the first flower in this cluster of flowers. I'm using Red Hot and Sweet Mango ink for these flowers. These are a 2-step flower, so I'm going to do 1 step in red and 1 step in that light orange, and it's just a beautiful look to see them combined that way. So I'm doing a counterclockwise and then a clockwise motion because I just want to fill this in, but you're still going to get kind of a shaded look because I'm going a little heavier in the center. Now, once that's done, I'm going to use layer 2. It'll just pop right in there. You'll be able to see it very easily. And I'm going to be using the Sweet Mango ink on layer 2. Now, if you don't want a two-tone flower, just use the same color for both layers. But I really like the way the two-toned flower looks, and you can do beautiful combinations with purples and blues or oranges and yellows. But the red and orange is one of my favorites. You can see how pretty that looks together. For my second flower, I blocked off both sides. Now, I'll warn you in advance, I should have blocked off the petal of the flower that I already used because I did get a little red ink there, but I do show you how I cover it up coming up with some green ink. So I'm going to once again start with the Red Hot ink on layer 1. Get some Red Hot in there. And then for layer 2, I'll be using the Sweet Mango ink once again. There's just something about these bright colors for spring that just make me so happy. So you can see now I'm adding the Sweet Mango. And each of these flowers is a little different, so it's kind of fun to use one on each of these blocks. I'm finishing up the last block with that third flower. And then you can see how pretty these look. They're all going in different directions. They're each a little bit different. And I think that that makes it very, very interesting, rather than having them all be exactly the same. Now it's time to start on the greenery. I'm going to be using jelly bean green and fresh asparagus for my greens. And I'm going to follow the same kind of pattern that I did with the first stencil. I'm just going to use the first part of the stem that would line up with that first flower. And I'm using some jelly bean green ink. Now I'm going to add a little bit of fresh asparagus with one of the new Gina K Designs fine detail blending brushes. These are nice for when you just want to add a little bit of color to something and you don't want to get it all over the place. You can really be precise with these fine detail brushes. I'm going to add a second leaf over here, and I'm going to do this one in fresh asparagus. Now, this isn't part of that stencil design, but you can do anything you want with these stencils. You can move them around and add greenery here and there. You could add a second flower coming up from the bottom. However you want to do this, it's just really neat to see how you can use a layering stencil in a different way than it was intended. And once again, I'm going to add some of the darker fresh asparagus just to the tips of these leaves, kind of where they would be growing out of the stem. And then a little bit onto the stem and onto the other side. Now I'm going to add another petal right in there because I feel like it needs a little more greenery. So I'm going to block this one off so I don't mess it up. And then I'm going to use some fresh asparagus on that one. So those two petals will be a little bit different the way they're shaded. And then I'm going to finish off that stem just by lowering the stem and finishing it off there so it's not just hanging out there in space, but it actually goes to the edge of that masking magic. I'm going to finish up this stem over here, and then I'm going to bring in a couple of petals on the other side. First, I'm going to add one here with some fresh asparagus. Now, you can leave a little more white space on these postage elements for stamping the different postage things like the forever and, 3 cents, things like that, 5 cents. But I think it's okay to stamp those things even over color if you want. And I think for this one, I'll be stamping that up in that top corner anyway, so I felt like it needed a little something down here in this bottom corner. Now here's the fun part, the peel and reveal. Kind of looks like a hot mess before you peel off the masking magic strips, but once you do, I love how all of these beautiful flowers and leaves are all contained inside the little boxes. And you can store your masking magic strips right on the plastic of your stencil, or if you use our stencil pockets, you can store them on the outside of the pocket just to keep them so you can use them again to make another card. And you can see how clean that is when you pull those off. Isn't that so pretty? So now I'm going to add some of the elements from the Postcards and More stamp set. I'm going to use this image here, and doing first class, you can also do it vertically because you'll notice a lot of real postage stamps, the words like first class or forever are actually vertical. So even if you don't have enough space to add it across the top or the bottom, you certainly can do that. And now I'm going to add another little element up at the top. And again, it's okay if these overlap the color. It's not a problem. I always like to try them out on a piece of cardstock first just to make sure they're stamping well. And then I'm going to add it up there. And then one more element down here, and then my little row of postage stamps is complete. Now I'm going to layer this onto the black panel that I cut out, and you can see this is exactly what I love. I love having that pop of black around the outside, and the Master Layouts 15 makes it easy because those two dies were designed to go together and get that perfect tiny little thin edge. Then I'm going to pop this panel right onto that wood-grained panel and then onto my card base. Now my mini slimline card base measures 6 1/4 by 6 1/2, and on the 6 1/2 side, you want to score it at 3 1/4 inches. And once that's done, I'm going to tape that whole panel right onto that mini slimline card base. And this is a perfect card for any occasion. It all depends on what you put on the inside. It can be any kind of card at all. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will give this a try. Stay tuned to the Simon Says Stamp channel for more great videos, and check me out on YouTube too at Gina K Designs. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you again real soon.
I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.